tears about this and I don't want to cry anymore. I just want it all to go away, but I know it will never go away.
Is it true that on the morning of September the 14th, 2007, when your daughter was lying near death in her bedroom, you were shaking by yourself in the dining room and you told your daughter, Bree, to leave you today?
We're just happy that it's over. We really are. And now I know that everybody knows that I didn't do it, just 10 times later.
To Ashley, her mother Stacey Castor was not just a mother. She was her best friend and simply an unlucky wife whose first husband died of a heart attack. And the second one apparently poisoned himself with antifreeze. But there was much more in the story than meets the eyes.
She just was surprised that we were there.
She thought this was all over and done with.
The sympathy for Stacey Castor turned to suspicion after the investigation of her husband David Castor's death. It was proved that he too died of poisoning, like Wallace, who was the first husband of the Black Widow. But the game takes a real turn when it is revealed that Stacey actually did a murder attempt to kill 20-year-old Ashley Wallace, just to be the boss of the entire kingdom her husband left behind. After it was discovered in September 2007 that both Stacey Castor's husbands had been poisoned, the detectives Dominic Spinelli and Valerie Brogan from the Onondaga County Sheriff's Department went to Stacey's home in Clay, New York, without warning. They took Stacey to the police station to interrogate her about her husband's death. When the police investigated, Stacey strongly defended herself, telling her version of what happened, and kept on insisting that on the day her second husband, David Castor, supposedly killed himself, she called their house multiple times to check in on him. However, Spinelli informed Stacey that phone records showed she had actually only called once. At that point, the 3-hour questioning session abruptly ended. Brogan exposed to the media about Stacey and said she was getting anxious, and she shut down and said, "That's it, I'm done. I want an attorney." It all started when on August 22, 2005, Stacey Castor called 911 and told them that she was worried about her husband, who was not coming out of the bedroom and might have committed suicide using the shotgun under his bed. She told the 911 operator that David had told her to leave. Friday night, when we were arguing, he told me to get out. Take my kids and get out. I could leave. And then 5 minutes later, he said if I left, he would make me sorry. I would be sorry if I ever left him. Then both of them had an argument and David locked himself up into his room. Later, it was discovered that he had died due to suicide. But something hidden was there behind the silent death of David Castor. So the detective Dominic Spinelli and Valerie Brogan went to Stacey's home to investigate, and they found something peculiar in the room. David's body was lying naked on the bed.
Very rarely does anybody commit suicide naked. When you find a body naked, oh no, start running the lab tests.
The cops searched the house, and an antifreeze bottle was discovered under the bed. Not only this, an apricot cranberry juice bottle was also there. Upon further searching, a turkey baster was also found. This led the cops to the suspicion that this is actually a murder being framed as suicide. So the next step was conducting the lab tests for fingerprints.
We started sending in the physical evidence, the antifreeze bottle, the apricot brandy bottle, the glasses, to see if there was any fingerprints or DNA evidence on those items, and as well as the turkey baster.
After the lab tests, it was revealed that there were fingerprints on the glass, and no offense, they clearly showed who the murderer actually was.
The glass actually had 3 fingerprints on it. They were all Stacey Castor's.
And the fingerprints in such a way that it was as if someone held the glass from the bottom.
Now, this suggests that Stacey may have left those fingerprints while keeping the glass in the cupboard after washing, but the presence on the bottom of the glass suggested that she might have picked it up to let her husband drink the antifreeze by force. Well, David had a masculine personality, so why did he have so many feminine things in his room? Like the apricot cranberry juice is entirely a feminine thing, and death by poisoning himself is also a feminine act. Like, who would want his naked body to suffer a lot?
If he really wanted to kill himself, he had a shotgun right under his bed.
Everything was leading towards proof that Stacey was the actual one who murdered David. But one thing was still left to test, and that was the turkey baster. So it was taken to the lab to take the fingerprints and DNA samples.
It turns out that there was antifreeze inside that turkey baster. One of the other puzzling things was David's DNA was on the tip of that turkey baster.
But there was something more surprising to reveal, that the turkey baster had no fingerprints on it. If David had used it, then why would he have left it clean to go undetected? If he really wanted to die, then why was he trying to hide it? This made the strong suspicion on Stacey more strong, because she was there at the time of death and might have cleaned the turkey baster after using it. Drinking antifreeze to die is a horrible decision one could ever make. Just one shot of this deadly liquid is enough to kill a grown man.
Dying by ingesting antifreeze is a long and painful process.
David's sister mentioned that David had knowledge of this chemical mixture from his work at Liverpool Heating and Air Conditioning, his own business. Shortly after David's death, his ex-wife Janice Poisson Farmer contacted Linda, expressing her disbelief that David would have intentionally harmed himself. Janice strongly believed that David would never commit suicide and shared this with Linda.
With his background in heating and air conditioning, he knew that antifreeze was a very painful death.
Detectives investigating the case also discovered that David's will left all his belongings and assets to Stacey Castor, his current wife, and her 2 daughters from a previous marriage. Surprisingly, David did not leave anything for his son, David Castor Jr., whom he had with Janice. Now, the next phase was to jump to allege that who wanted David to be dead. Investigators learned that Stacey was married to Wallace before David came into her life. The shocking reality that came in front was Wallace was dead too. Stacey had 2 daughters with Wallace, Ashley Wallace and Bree, so the investigation got a turn. It was discovered that in December 1999, Wallace began experiencing health issues and was feeling unwell during the holidays. Ashley Wallace, his daughter, said in an interview that he had difficulty walking and talking. She vividly remembered one incident when he vomited across the coffee table and went back to sleep as if nothing happened. Then, in January 2000, Ashley found her father lying on the couch making strange faces. She was on the phone with her mother at the time and hung up to pick up her sister from school. When her mother Stacey returned home, Michael Wallace appeared unresponsive and was rushed to the hospital. Doctors later determined that he had died of a heart attack. However, suspicions arose when detectives investigating another case, the death of David Castor, obtained Michael's medical records and discovered that he had a healthy heart. They decided to delve deeper into Michael's death and obtained permission to exhume his body in September 2007.
Michael Wallace's body would be exhumed and autopsied. And I was standing there saying, boy, I hope if he was killed, this comes out. I hope there's something there.
The medical examiner made an alarming discovery during the autopsy. Wallace's organs were filled with crystals, a sign of antifreeze poisoning. This revelation led detectives to believe that Stacey Castor, who was David's wife and Michael's widow, was likely responsible for both of her husband's deaths. So it was time to return to Stacey, who had already thought that she was out of danger. She was brought to the police station and the detectives started.
I said, Stacey, there were 2 glasses sitting on the nightstand. You say that you poured him some cranberry juice at one point, right?
Stacey got puzzled, and there the slip of tongue happened.
I asked Stacey, do you remember which glass it was that you poured the cranberry juice in? And she looked at it and said, well, when I poured the antifreeze, and then she stopped and said, I mean the cranberry juice.
Stacey got defensive and accused Spinelli of trying to frame her. She even demanded to have a lawyer present, abruptly ending the interview. Meanwhile, Stacey's daughter Ashley, who was away at college, received a visit from the police. They informed her that they believed her father had been poisoned with antifreeze. When Ashley called her mother to share the news, Stacey had a strange reaction.
And then Stacey Castor, the mom, has this suggestion. You know what? This is all too heavy. Why don't we drink? Why don't we have a drink?
Instead of being concerned, she suggested that they have a drink together and get drunk. Ashley, being a teenager, thought it was cool that her mom was giving her permission to drink, so she agreed. Unfortunately, Ashley's drinking experience with her mother didn't turn out well. She ended up passing out and waking up in her bedroom. The next day, they drank together again, but this time things took a more dangerous turn. Ashley's younger sister, Bree, became worried when Ashley didn't come out of her bedroom the next morning. When she checked on her, she found Ashley unresponsive, and Stacey called 911. Stacey told the emergency operator that Ashley had taken pills and consumed alcohol. Bree found a piece of paper in Ashley's room that seemed to be a suicide note, confessing to the murders of Stacey's previous husbands, Michael Wallace and David Castor. It also had Ashley's typed signature at the end. This was a shocking discovery for everyone involved.
Another family member near death, this time her daughter Ashley.
Ashley was rushed to the hospital, and she survived despite being minutes away from death. When she woke up, she was questioned about the notes and the pills. She denied any involvement and insisted that she hadn't done anything mentioned in the note. Things took a dramatic turn when the detectives noticed something interesting about the suicide note. The way Stacey spelled antifreeze without the letter Z matched how she had pronounced it during her interview with Detective Spinelli. This, along with other evidence, led the detectives to believe that Stacey had written the note and was responsible for the crimes.
Is it true that you said the word antifree on September the 7th, 2007?
Yes, it is.
Is it true that the word antifree appears 4 times in the note that you wrote?
Though Stacey maintained her innocence throughout the trial, she was convicted of the murder of David Castor, the attempted murder of Ashley, and forging David's will. She was sentenced to a maximum of 51 1/3 years to life in prison. However, in 2016, Stacey was found dead in prison from a heart attack, and no foul play was suspected. Finally, it was the end of the murderer's widow and a killer mom.